He starts writing. Dear Father, you will not believe what I am about to tell you. The American prison camps are not camps at all. They are towns. We have a library, a cinema, a soccer field, and a hospital with real doctors. The food is plentiful. Last week, I ate a steak that would have cost a month's salary in Berlin. The guards do not insult us. They offer us cigarettes. They ask about our families. He pauses. The next sentence is dangerous. He writes it anyway. The propaganda we were told about American brutality is a lie. A complete and total lie. I have seen more kindness here in 2 weeks than I saw in 4 years of service. If the German people knew the truth, the war would end tomorrow. He signs it, folds it, and walks to the mail desk. The American censor, a rabbi from Chicago with tired eyes, stamps it without comment. What Hubner doesn't know is that his letter is about to be copied, photographed, translated into English, and distributed to every POW camp in the American system. Because the U.S. War Department has realized something profound. The best weapon against Nazi ideology isn't a bomb, it's truth. And the most convincing witnesses are the Germans themselves. By February 1945, American intelligence officers are systematically flooding the camps with re-education materials, newspapers filled with photos of bombed-out German cities, essays on democracy, lectures by exiled Jewish intellectuals. But the most effective propaganda isn't printed, it's experienced. Every morning at Camp Crossville, the prisoners wake to the smell of bacon frying. Every evening at Camp McCain, Mississippi, they watch Hollywood movies in a heated auditorium. Newsreels show the liberation of concentration camps. The Germans watch in stony silence. Some weep. Others refuse to believe it, until the Americans bring in local German Jewish refugees to speak. One night in March at Camp Gordon, Georgia, a German sergeant named Fritz Klinger watches The Nazi Plan, a documentary compiled from captured German footage. He sees the mass graves, the ovens, the skeletal survivors. After the screening, he walks back to his barracks and sits on his cot for 3 hours without moving. Then he stands up and tells his bunkmate, I never saw anything like that on the Eastern Front, but I didn't want to know. That's the difference here. The Americans make us. Across the South, in nearly 700 camps holding 425,000 German POWs, the same transformation is happening. Quietly. Uneatenly. Camp by camp. But the biggest shock isn't the food. It's not the movies. It's what happens when the Germans are sent outside the wire. Type continue to generate the next section. Section 3. The work camps and the unthinkable sight. April 3rd, 1945. A potato farm outside Hereford, Texas. 7 a.m. 20 German POWs climb out of a white school bus. No bars on the windows, no chains on their feet. Their guards, 2 elderly American veterans of the First World War, armed only with sidearms, point toward a field stretching to the horizon. Okay, boys, potatoes, let's go. This is the secret weapon of American POW policy: labor. Not forced labor in the Nazi sense. No whips, no starvation wages, no exhaustion as punishment. Instead, the U.S. government leases prisoners to local farmers for $1.50 per day, paid to the camp, not the prisoner. The prisoners get 80 cents. The farmers get cheap labor. And the Germans get something far more dangerous than work: normalcy. For Gefreiter Heinz Schultz, a 22-year-old from Dresden, the first morning outside the wire is terrifying. He expects the local farmers to spit on him, throw rocks. He's an enemy soldier. That's what Germans would do. Instead, the farmer's wife comes out of the farmhouse with a tray of lemonade and ham sandwiches. She smiles. "Y'all work hard now, you hear?" Schultz doesn't understand the words, but he understands the smile. He eats the sandwich in 4 bites. The bread is white, the ham is thick, the lemonade is cold. Then, the farmer's daughter, a girl of maybe 16 with red hair and freckles, walks past him without flinching. She doesn't run, doesn't glare, she just says, "Hi." Schultz stares after her. He hasn't seen a young woman in 2 years who wasn't a nurse or a refugee. But here, in the middle of Texas, a teenage girl just greeted him like a neighbor. That evening, back at the camp, Schultz writes in his diary, "The Americans let us work on real farms. They pay us. They feed us. And today, a girl said hello to me. She was not afraid. I do not understand these people." What Schultz doesn't realize is that he's witnessing the death of his own ideology in real time. The Nazis taught that Americans were a mongrel race, soft, decadent, cowardly, incapable of sacrifice. But here, on the Texas plains, he sees men who work 14 hours a day, women who drive tractors, children who carry lunches to prisoners. No decadence, no cowardice, just stubborn, generous, overwhelming plenty. And then he sees something that breaks his brain entirely. A field of cotton pickers. Black and white Americans working side by side, together. Schultz has been taught that America is a land of racial chaos, that blacks are subhuman, that integration leads to ruin, that the white population lives in constant fear of mixogenation. But here, the farmhands laugh together, eat together, share water from the same jug. He asks a guard, a Texan with a drawl as thick as molasses, "Are the Negroes soldiers?" The guard laughs. "Sure, they got their own units. Segregated. It ain't perfect, but they fight. Damn good, too." Schultz has no framework for this. In the Wehrmacht, racial purity is law. Slavs are Untermenschen. Jews are vermin. But here, the enemy isn't practicing what he preaches. Here, the enemy is struggling with his own racism and still doing better than the Reich.
The contradiction unsettles him more than any lecture ever could. By May 1945, the war in Europe is over. The news spreads through the camps like wildfire. Some Germans weep, others cheer, quietly, fearfully, unsure if surrender means punishment. But the Americans don't change. The food keeps coming, the movies keep playing, the work keeps paying. And then the prisoners start to disappear. Not to execution, to repatriation. But some don't want to go back. Some beg to stay. A few even marry American women they met while working on farms. The U.S. government, stunned by the success of its re-education program, quietly moves thousands of German POWs into labor contracts that last years after the war ends. One of them is Karl-Heinz Vogel. He never returns to Germany. In 1947, after 2 years of working on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, he applies for U.S. residency. He becomes a citizen in 1954. And every Thanksgiving, he roasts a turkey, makes gravy from scratch, and tells his grandchildren the same story. "I was a prisoner of war. The best time of my life." He pauses. Then he smiles. "Don't tell your grandmother I said that." Section 4. The Quiet Collapse. October 12th, 1945. Camp Swift, Texas, 9 p.m. The last German prisoners are packing. In 3 days, the first ships will leave for Europe, carrying men who haven't seen home in 2 years. But the mood isn't joyful. It's strange. Men who once dreamed of escape now linger at the camp gates, staring at the American flag as if memorizing it. A former SS conscript, captured at 17, now 19, with hollow eyes and a full beard, stands in front of a bulletin board. The board is covered with notices, job offers from American farms, addresses of churches that sponsored prisoners, handwritten notes from guards,
Good luck, Fritz. Write if you get work. The young man touches the paper. His hand shakes. He knows what's waiting in Germany. Ruins, hunger, a nation of widows and rubble. He knows the Allies are denazifying, a polite word for purging, and that his SS tattoo will follow him forever. But here, in Texas, he's just a kid who picked cotton and learned to play baseball. He turns to the man beside him. I don't want to go back.
The other man nods. Neither says anything else. By the numbers, 425,000 German POWs passed through American camps between 1942 and 1946. Of those, fewer than 1% attempted escape. Fewer than 0.1% succeeded. The vast majority chose to stay. Not because they were forced, because America was better. The official U.S. Army history, written in 1947, puts it bluntly. The prisoner of war program was the most successful re-education effort in modern military history. Not through coercion, through example. But the real testament comes from the German side. In 1985, a German historian named Arthur L. Smith Jr. interviewed 200 former POWs about their time in America. The transcripts are astonishing. Again and again, the same phrase appears. The day I realized I had been lied to was the day I ate my first American steak. One former prisoner, a truck driver from Munich, tells a story that sums up everything. He was working on a farm in Nebraska in the spring of 1945. The farmer's son was about to ship out to the Pacific. The night before he left, the farmer invited all the German POWs into his house for dinner, at his table.
A newspaper reporter asks one of them, a former Luftwaffe pilot named Klaus Wagner, why he risked everything to stay. Wagner looks at the reporter. He's barefoot, soaking wet, shivering in a borrowed coat. I ate more steak in 2 years as a prisoner than I ate in 20 years as a free German, he says. Now tell me, which one is the prison? The reporter has no answer. Neither does history.